Hi, I'm Stevie Schultz, and I'm going to be presenting to you Alfie Kohn's book, Schooling Beyond Measure and Other Unorthodox Essays About Education. Alfie Kohn's compilation of articles and blog posts confront big picture ideas like standardized testing to small ideas like classroom interactions. He looks at a variety of research studies and found that in each case, the studies do not match what they say. He questions if it is possible to phase out some of these age-old school practices, and that students may even be better prepared for life if they are not discriminated against for their grades, standardized testing, data, homework, and tests. Kohn calls for educators to dive into action to explore the methods and values of the education system. Kohn argues an array of issues in his book, such as the case against grades. In the 1980s and 90s, educational psychologists systematically studied the effects of grades. When students from elementary school to college who are led to focus on grades are compared with those who aren't, the results support three robust conclusions. 1. Grades tend to diminish students' interest in whatever they're learning. 2. Grades create a preference for the easiest possible task. Number 3. Grades tend to reduce the quality of students' thinking. He also discusses the value of standardized testing. Standardized tests are a very poor measure of the intellectual capabilities that matter most. And that's true because of how they're designed, not just because of how they are used. Al Cuoco and Fay Rupp remind us rising scores over time are nothing to cheer about, because the kind of instruction intended to prepare kids for the test may be instruction that's not valuable. Indeed, teaching designed to raise test scores typically reduces the time available for real learning. Kohn also argues that homework is an unnecessary evil. In a study by Adam Maltese and his colleagues, they found that there was no relationship whatsoever between time spent on homework and course grade, and no real difference in grades between students who complete the homework and those who do not. Is homework really worth the frustration, exhaustion, family conflict, loss of time for other activities, and potential weakening of interest in learning? And finally, Kohn questions, do tests really help students learn? Kohn is baffled by the number of educators who are adamantly opposed to standardized testing, yet raised no objection to other practices that share important features with such testing. Many of us rail against standardized tests, not only because of the harmful uses to which they're put, but because they're imposed on us. It's more unsettling to acknowledge that the tests we come up with ourselves can also be damaging. The good news is that the far superior alternatives are available. As mentioned previously, Kohn questions grades and how they affect students. He says abolishing grades opens up possibilities that are far more meaningful and constructive. His planned curriculum would include narratives or written comments, portfolios where carefully chosen collections of students' writings and projects that demonstrate their interests, achievement, and improvement over time, student-led parent-teacher conferences, exhibitions, and other opportunities for students to show what they can do. Kohn questions whether praises or failures have a positive impact on students. He suggests that we use informational feedback instead of focusing on those praises and failures. Feedback like, "Great job!" doesn't tell the learner what he did right. When students receive information from an educator, they develop an awareness of their learning and are more easily able to recognize mistakes and eventually develop strategies for how to deal with them. Kohn would be a strong proponent for playgrounds, games in the classroom, and manipulatives for students because he believes that children should have plenty of opportunities to play. He states that our children, even the young children, have too few such opportunities these days, particularly in school settings. Play is of the utmost importance, no matter age, because it teaches academic skills, advances language development, promotes perspective taking, conflict resolution, the capacity for planning, and so on. Kohn's position on the curriculum continuum would lie somewhere between learner-centered and social reconstructionist. A learner-centered approach views learners as active agents. They bring their own knowledge, past experiences, education, and ideas, and this impacts how they take on new information and learn. Kohn believes that learning is a process in which the words discovery, exploration, and curiosity are found in abundance. Learning is more important than the products that result. Skillful educators tap students' natural curiosity and desire to become competent. In a learning environment, teachers want to help students engage with what they are doing to promote deeper understanding. In a social reconstruction ideology, society is in need of constant reconstruction or change. Such social change involves a reconstruction of education and the use of education in reconstructing the society. Kohn challenges educators to confront our own beliefs, privileges, and underlying biases when it comes to a variety of topics that we utilize in the classroom. For example, Kohn believes that teachers need to take the risks associated with leaving traditional grading and reward systems behind. He encourages teachers to develop curriculum with the students in mind and not traditional educational norms. Alfie Kohn would possibly use project-based learning as a contemporary curriculum development model. He believes in classrooms where the student is at the center of everything. PBL is a teaching method in which students gain knowledge and skills by working for an extended period of time to investigate and respond to an authentic, engaging, and complex question, problem, or challenge. According to Kohn, educators need to design interdisciplinary projects with them to assess their understanding by watching and listening instead of giving quizzes. If you try to force bare facts or techniques down their throats, you'll not only turn them off to the process of learning, you'll also make it much less likely that they'll really understand what they are doing. Kohn worries about personalized learning in our schools. He states that much of what's marketed as personalized learning amounts to little more than breaking knowledge and ideas down into itty-bitty parts, and using extrinsic rewards to march kids through a series of decontextualized skills that they had no meaningful role in choosing. Kohn calls the old school transmission model of education into question. Cultural literacy is a term coined by American educator and literary critic E.D. Hirsch. He refers to the ability to understand and participate fluently in a given culture. He believed that background knowledge should be introduced early through an explicitly taught sequential interdisciplinary curriculum. Whereas Kohn believes in the progressive education model, where the focus is on raising critical thinkers and inquirers who are active rather than those passive learners. According to Dr. Anita Eady, an associate professor at Northeastern State University, scripted curriculum materials are instructional materials that have been commercially prepared and require the teacher to read from script while delivering the lesson. Kohn wildly objects the one-size-fits-all model of education. He believes that an educator's curriculum is the kind of teaching that responds to different interests, talents, and dispositions of different children, and that it rarely takes place in a classroom where the teacher is in front of the room disgorging information and covering a preset curriculum. As I sat in a room full of pharmacists, listening to the keynote speaker discussing anyone who's working in a professional capacity should be involved in politics at any level, because this is one way to make a change. I immediately thought of Alfie Kohn's position of educational curriculum at the national level. He calls for change from the top down and to think outside the box of traditional education. He asks us to rethink the narrative, to make the change, and I happen to agree. It's time to affirm that the primary value of schooling can't be measured in dollars and cents. It's time to stop judging high-quality schooling by whether we're beating other countries who were also trying to improve education. It's time to stop defining high-quality schooling by its difficulty level. It's time to stop defining high-quality schooling by how similar it is from one district or state to the next. It's time to stop defining high-quality schooling in terms of its specificity. And most of all, it's time to stop defining educational success, achievement, or accountability in terms of scores on standardized tests. Although I agree with Kohn about our national educational curriculum, I have a hard time conceding to his classroom theories about grades, homework, and tests. Grading can provide students and teachers with feedback about their learning, understanding, and where to improve. It also helps teachers inform teaching strategies. Homework is beneficial for students because it can bolster skills that will be of assistance to them throughout schooling and their professional life. Homework can improve grades, discipline, time management, and improve communication. These are fundamental skills that will help students find success. Finally, research has found that tests can be valuable tools to help students learn if they're designed and administered with format, timing, and content in mind and a clear purpose to improve student learning. Alfie Kohn is considerably controversial in the area of education. His ideas and theories have challenged traditional beliefs and calls for educators to dive into action to explore the methods and values of our educational system. As an educator, would you challenge the status quo of the traditional education system? And if so, what would you do?